The hidden invitation. Why pain isn't the end, but the beginning. I still remember Mr. Borisenko's hands, a tall man in his 80s with a deep voice and a strong handshake, or at least it used to be. By the time he came to see me, those hands trembled from the pain in his wrists. Simple things, tying shoelaces, slicing bread, holding the hand of his granddaughter, had become small battles. But what hurt most, he said, was the feeling of becoming fragile. "Doctor," he asked, trying to smile, "is this just what it is now? Stiff in the morning, swollen at night, pills in every drawer?" That question stayed with me, because it's the question millions of people over 60 quietly carry in their bones. Is this the beginning of the end? Let me say this with complete clarity. No, it is not the end. In fact, for many of my patients, joint pain is the beginning of something unexpected. A wake-up call, a chance to shift, restore, and even, believe it or not, reclaim freedom. Today, I want to share with you 4 foods that have quietly changed the lives of many people like Mr. Borisenko. Not magic pills, not trendy supplements, but real, natural foods, each with a secret gift for your joints. Before we dive into the first one, let me take you back to a moment that changed the way I think about aging. The chair by the window. I was visiting a long-term care home years ago when I saw a woman sitting in a sunlit hallway, cradling her knee. Her face was peaceful, but her eyes told another story. Every few seconds, a flicker of pain just under the surface. I sat beside her. "Old injury?" I asked gently. "Old life," she replied. Turns out she had danced ballet into her 40s, knees like springs, feet like feathers, and now every step was stiff, painful, hesitant. I asked what she missed most. "Moving without thinking," she said. That phrase struck me, because that's what joint pain steals, not just movement, but trust in your own body. And yet, when we bring the right nutrients, the right rhythms, and the right intentions into our daily life, we can rebuild that trust. And we start with something that might already be sitting in your kitchen. Turmeric, the golden whisper of relief, bright yellow. Earthy, a spice of ancient medicine and modern science. Turmeric contains curcumin, a natural compound with powerful anti-inflammatory properties. When inflammation builds in the joints, it's like a slow, quiet fire, damaging cartilage, swelling tissue, tightening tendons. Curcumin doesn't just soothe the fire, it helps rewire the body's response. But here's the secret most people miss. Turmeric only becomes truly effective when paired with black pepper. Piperine, a compound in pepper, increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. It's a partnership. A reminder that healing often happens in relationship, not in isolation. I often tell my patients, start small. A cup of golden milk in the evening, a pinch of turmeric in your morning eggs. Daily, gentle signals to your body that say, you're not broken, you're rebuilding, and they feel it, not overnight, but gradually. Less stiffness in the morning, fewer aches after walks, and most importantly, a sense of quiet control. Which brings us to a second unexpected ally in the journey, tart cherries. The night fruit, how cherries quiet the storm. Tart cherries, especially Montmorency cherries, are more than just a bedtime snack. They are one of nature's richest sources of anthocyanins, compounds that reduce inflammation and oxidative stress, 2 major drivers of joint degeneration. One patient, Nina, began drinking a small glass of tart cherry juice at night after I recommended it. A skeptical former nurse in her 70s, she kept a diary of her pain levels. After 3 weeks, her note said, "Slept through the night. First time in years. Joints feel cooler." I loved that word, cooler, because when joints are inflamed, they feel hot, stiff, angry. Tart cherries don't sedate the pain. They soften it, They lower CRP, C-reactive protein, a marker of inflammation, and gently coax the body back into balance. And they taste good. That matters too. So now we have turmeric for daytime relief, tart cherries for nighttime recovery. But we're not done. There are 2 more foods I want to share, one that lubricates your joints from the inside and another that strengthens the structures holding them together. But let's pause here. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you woke up and stretched your arms without hesitation? When was the last time you bent down, not carefully, not bracing, but freely? If you can't remember, that's okay, because your body hasn't forgotten how. It just needs help remembering, and that's what we'll do together, step by step. In our next chapter, I'll introduce you to a fruit that acts like oil for your joints, slipping between the cracks, softening every move. But for now, let these 2 first allies, turmeric and tart cherries, begin their gentle work. You're not fragile, you're healing, and we're just getting started. The oil inside, how avocado softens. Every step, I want you to imagine a door hinge. When it's dry, it creaks. Sticks, fights every movement, but with a few drops of oil, it swings open again. Quiet, easy, smooth. That's what a ripe avocado can do for your joints. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats, healthy oils that reduce inflammation throughout the body. But their secret weapon lies deeper. Phytosterols, compounds that slow down the degeneration of cartilage. And then there's vitamin E, a natural antioxidant that protects your joint cells from oxidative damage, like rust on a hinge. But more than science, let me tell you about Elvira. She was 78 when she came to one of my workshops in Kyiv, tall, sharp-witted, with a silver braid down her back. Her knees had been aching for years, and she used to joke, "I walk like an old cart on a cobbled street." I introduced her to the idea of an avocado breakfast, half an avocado with lemon, a slice of rye, and a soft-boiled egg. Simple. Gentle. Nourishing. 3 months later, she came back to the clinic wearing running shoes. "I'm not running," she laughed, "but I feel like I could." It wasn't a miracle. It was momentum. When joints receive the right fats, they don't just move better, they recover faster. The synovial fluid inside your joints, the body's natural lubricant, depends on fat intake. Without it, movement becomes dry. Painful. With it, it becomes alive again. But movement isn't only about fluidity, it's also about strength, which brings us to the 4th fruit, and perhaps the most underestimated of all. The hidden scaffold. Why Kiwi rebuilds. What time tears down. We often think of joints as just bones and cartilage, but what holds them together? What keeps your shoulders steady, your knees stable, your fingers nimble? The answer is collagen. Collagen is the protein scaffold of our connective tissue. Without it, tendons weaken, ligaments loosen, cartilage thins. And that's where kiwi enters the story. This humble green fruit is loaded with vitamin C, essential for the production of collagen. Without enough vitamin C, your body simply cannot rebuild what age wears down. It's like trying to repair a bridge with no steel. Kiwi also contains actinidin, an enzyme that supports digestion, helping your body absorb the nutrients it needs to repair tissue. One of my patients, Petro, learned this the hard way. At 81, he had suffered a minor fall and struggled to recover. His muscles healed, but his joints stayed swollen, stiff, hesitant. We added 1 kiwi a day to his lunch, nothing fancy, but after 2 months, his recovery accelerated. His physical therapist called it a quiet leap. Sometimes that's all we need. Not a breakthrough, but a quiet leap forward, 1 bite at a time. The truth we don't always want to hear. Now I want to pause and ask you something uncomfortable. What if your pain isn't just age? What if it's a signal? What if your body isn't betraying you, but pleading with you? Most people see joint pain as the beginning of decline. I see it as the body knocking gently at the door, asking, "Will you listen? Will you care for me? Will you change, even a little?" Because here's what I've learned after 35 years with thousands of patients. The body wants to heal. It doesn't give up. Even when we've stopped trying, it's still working. And when you begin to nourish it with real whole foods, turmeric, cherries, avocado, kiwi, you're not just eating, you're making a promise. You're saying, I choose presence over pain, movement over stillness, life over resignation. The return to the beginning. Remember Mr. Borisenko? 3 months after our first meeting, I saw him again. This time, he wasn't rubbing his wrists. He held out his hand. Firm, steady, warm. I started small, he said. Turmeric tea, cherry juice, an avocado now and then, kiwi after lunch. I didn't think it would matter, but it did. He looked down at his palms as if surprised they were still his. I buttoned my shirt this morning, he whispered. No pain. And then he smiled, not a big smile, a quiet one, the kind that comes when you realize something you thought was gone isn't. We all carry those moments, don't we? Moments where we think, I've lost too much. It's too late. I'm too far gone. But healing doesn't shout. It whispers. It begins with a stretch that doesn't hurt, a night of sleep without aching, a spoonful of something golden, a green fruit after lunch. And if we listen carefully, if we answer with even a little intention, then perhaps one morning we'll wake up and discover that our body remembers how to trust us again, that our joints are not a sentence but a story, and we are still writing it. When movement becomes music, again, healing begins where stiffness ends. I was walking through Central Park one morning, crisp air, a soft hum of joggers, dog walkers, and the distant sound of saxophone from a man who played near the Bethesda fountain every Thursday. And that's when I saw her, Mrs. Linda Foster. She used to be my patient in Columbus, Ohio. Now here she was, nearly 70, walking briskly, shoulders back, smiling like she had a secret. I called out her name, and she laughed. Dr. Warren, I can walk now, and I love it so much, I moved to the city. Imagine that. Me in Manhattan. Just 6 months earlier, she could barely go upstairs. Her knees crackled. Her hips felt tight. She used to describe her body as a stiff wooden puppet. But something had changed, and it wasn't just food. The myth of the magic pill. Too many people believe that healing happens in a bottle, that one more pill will fix it all. But pain is rarely that simple, and healing is never that fast. Linda didn't take any miracle cure. What she did was simple. She moved, but she moved differently. After adding turmeric and tart cherry to her diet, we created a movement plan. Not exercise, not punishment, just motion. Every day she walked 5 extra steps than the day before. She added stretching before bed. Light yoga in the morning, a slow dance in her kitchen to Sam Cooke. It wasn't glamorous, but it was healing. You see, the human joint is like a well-designed doorway. If it never opens, it swells, rusts, warps. But the moment you swing it open gently, regularly, it remembers. It adapts. It starts to trust again, and when food supports that motion, when avocado oils the hinge and kiwi rebuilds the frame, then you're not just surviving, you're returning to life. A lesson from James Hill in Savannah. Let me tell you about James Hill, 76, a retired piano tuner from Savannah, Georgia. For years, his fingers were his life. Then arthritis came like a thief in the night. Stiffness, swelling, pain. He couldn't play. Couldn't even button his shirt without wincing. But James was stubborn, not about denying the pain, but about not letting it define him. He started eating differently. Every breakfast included half an avocado. Lunch, a salad with tart cherry vinaigrette. Dinner, grilled salmon, turmeric spiced quinoa, and kiwi for dessert. It wasn't a diet, it was a rhythm. After 4 months, he called me. "Doc," he said, "I tuned a Steinway this morning. My hands hurt a little, but they moved, smooth, almost like before." And then he paused. I played a little afterward, just for myself. That's when I knew this was more than healing joints. This was restoring dignity, because joint pain isn't just physical. It takes your rhythm, your hobbies, your touch. And when you reclaim movement, you reclaim music. The unexpected power of walking without fear. Do you remember the last time you moved without fear? Not just walked, but trusted your body? For some, it's a staircase. For others, it's the fear of falling in the shower, or bending down to pick up a grandchild and not knowing if you'll be able to stand back up. These moments of doubt, they build walls inside us. But I've seen something extraordinary. When people start eating to reduce inflammation and move to rebuild trust, those walls begin to crack, and eventually they fall. Like Thomas Rivera in Tucson, Arizona, who took his first walk around the block without his cane after 3 months of this approach. He called it the Freedom Loop. Like Amy Wilkins in Boulder, Colorado, who started dancing again at a community center. She sent me a video, eyes closed, arms raised, arthritis be damned. These weren't elite athletes. These were people like you and me, and they didn't get younger. They got stronger. Not stronger in the way magazines show, stronger in their knees, in their mornings, in their hope. And now, a small invitation. Tonight, when you sit down for dinner, I want you to look at your plate and ask yourself, is this a message of pain or a message of healing? Will your body receive more stiffness or more strength? Will your joints cry out in the morning or sigh with quiet relief? You don't have to change everything, but what if you began with one? 1 turmeric tea before bed, 1 avocado toast tomorrow morning. 1 walk, not far, not fast, just present, because motion plus nourishment equals renewal, and your body remembers how to feel free. You are not too old, not too late, and not beyond change. You are capable of reclaiming your rhythm, 1 step, 1 bite, 1 day at a time. When the heart stiffens, the joints follow. It was a rainy Tuesday in Seattle when I met Eleanor Banks. She had driven all the way from Olympia, 2 hours each way, with a warm scarf, a soft smile, and knees that barely let her out of the car. She winced when she stood, but brushed it off quickly, as though the pain was impolite to mention. "I'm not here just for my joints, Dr. Warren," she said quietly, settling into the chair across from me. I think I'm grieving. She had lost her husband 2 years earlier. Since then, everything had slowed. Her walks, her sleep, her laughter, and now, her joints. There is a truth we don't talk about enough. Emotional pain and physical pain are twins. What the heart carries, the body reflects. And when we hold grief, resentment, or loneliness for too long, our joints begin to mirror that weight. The science of emotion and inflammation. Medical science now confirms what we've felt all along. Emotional stress increases inflammation. Cortisol, the stress hormone, spikes in the body during prolonged sadness, anger, or isolation. And cortisol, over time, damages tissues. It wears down cartilage. It fuels joint swelling. It dulls the body's ability to repair itself. That's why no anti-inflammatory diet is complete without emotional nourishment. And no physical healing is complete without emotional release. With Eleanor, we began with the body. Turmeric in her morning oatmeal. Cherry juice at night. Walks around the garden, just 5 minutes a day. But we also did something else. I asked her to write 1 letter each week. Not to send, just to express. A letter to her husband, to herself, to her knees. 6 weeks in, she told me, "The pain is still there, but I feel lighter, like the joints aren't the only thing that's healing." And she began to walk further and laugh more. Because joints don't just carry your weight, they carry your life. The couple who healed together. Let me tell you about Dan and Melissa Harrington from Asheville, North Carolina. Married 42 years, their retirement dream was to travel. But Dan's hands began to swell. Melissa's hips stiffened. Plans turned to pauses. And slowly, they began drifting into a quiet kind of sadness. One day, Melissa turned to Dan and said, "We're not just stuck because of pain, we're stuck because we stopped moving toward each other." So they made a small vow: no big diets, no gym memberships. Just 2 things: eat healing food together and move together. Every morning, a shared green smoothie, kiwi, banana, spinach, a scoop of turmeric, and a splash of cherry juice. Every evening, a walk, even just to the mailbox. Hand in hand. 6 months later, they sent me a postcard from Zion National Park. "We made it," Melissa wrote. "It wasn't fast, but we climbed together. They didn't heal because of food and motion. They healed because they did it in connection, and that too reduces inflammation." Closeness. Presence. Joy. What if it's not just arthritis? Here's a gentle question I've asked many times. What if your joints aren't broken? What if they're responding? Responding to years of rushing, of not being heard, of always carrying someone else's weight while ignoring your own. Your body keeps the score. And your joints? They remember, but they can also forgive. I've seen women in their 80s, like Eleanor, regain flexibility after letting go of old guilt. I've seen men, like Dan, walk straighter after opening up emotionally for the first time in years. Healing isn't just about cartilage, it's about compassion toward yourself. Tonight, when you lie down, here's something I invite you to try tonight. Before you sleep, take a moment to place your hands on your knees, your hips, your shoulders, wherever you feel the ache. And instead of frustration, offer gratitude. Say, out loud or quietly, "Thank you for carrying me. I see your pain. I will listen now." This is not sentiment, it's science. Because when we shift from blame to care, our nervous system softens. Cortisol drops, inflammation fades, and healing begins. You are not weak because you feel pain. You are wise because you are willing to tend to it. And sometimes the first medicine isn't found in a bottle or a fruit bowl. It's found in kindness. What you don't know is hurting you. Hidden triggers of joint pain. There's a story I think about often. It's about Curtis Green, a retired postal worker from Charlotte, North Carolina. Sturdy, dependable. The kind of man who wore the same brand of boots for 40 years and still folded his socks military style. When he came to see me, his hands were swollen and aching. He couldn't grip a coffee mug without flinching. "Arthritis," he said with a sigh. "Comes with the territory, right?" But I wasn't so sure. His labs were confusing. His joints looked inflamed, but his markers didn't match classic rheumatoid arthritis or severe osteoarthritis. So we dug deeper, not into his medical history, but his daily life. And what we uncovered changed everything. The invisible culprits: food additives, environment, and routine. Curtis, like many, had a simple diet: toast with margarine, deli meat sandwiches, canned soup. Easy, familiar, but loaded with hidden ingredients that most people never think about, yet cause their joints to swell silently. Preservatives like sodium nitrate, artificial sweeteners like aspartame. Refined oils like soybean and corn oil, found in nearly every packaged snack, each one a matchstick, harmless alone. But together, they light the fire of inflammation. And then there were the cleaning products he used: scented sprays, surface wipes, air fresheners, full of volatile organic compounds, VOCs, that can trigger systemic inflammation in sensitive bodies. He had no idea. Most people don't. We made 2 changes. First, we simplified his food. Real ingredients, no barcodes, eggs, greens, fresh fruit, wild rice, olive oil. Second, we detoxed his home, switched to vinegar and baking soda cleaners, opened the windows more, removed synthetic scents. 6 weeks later, his hands had deflated. The stiffness was nearly gone. "Doc," he told me, holding his wife's hand, "I thought I was falling apart. Turns out, I was just reacting." That's the power of awareness, the good intentions that go bad. I've also seen this with health foods. Yes, you heard that right. Protein bars that promise energy but are full of processed soy and sugar alcohols. Supplements that claim anti-aging benefits but contain artificial dyes and fillers. Even popular vegetable oils labeled as heart-healthy can oxidize at cooking temperatures, producing inflammation-causing compounds. The truth is, not everything labeled healthy is healing, and many things labeled normal are quietly toxic. I remember Nora Simmons, 71, from Dallas, Texas. She thought her morning yogurt parfait was helping her bones until we checked the label. 18 grams of sugar, artificial flavors, and gums that made her bloat and ache. We switched to Greek yogurt, unsweetened, fresh berries, crushed walnuts, drizzle of honey. Within weeks, her knees felt looser. She said, "It's like someone opened a window in my body." Because when you remove what harms, healing rushes in like fresh air. Your home is your healer. Think about your home, your fridge, your pantry, your bathroom shelf. Are they helping your joints or hurting them? A can of soup with 1-200 milliliters of sodium. A sugar-free drink that leaves your fingers stiff in the morning. A bag of snacks you don't even like, but reach for anyway. And here's the hard part. Many of us are loyal to routines that no longer serve us, not because we're lazy, but because we're tired. Joint pain makes everything harder. Standing at the stove, reading tiny labels, shopping in crowded stores. It's no wonder we cling to convenience. But what if healing could be convenient too? A tray of roasted vegetables made once a week. A pot of herbal tea with turmeric and ginger on the stove. Cherries in the freezer, ready for bedtime. Healing doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be consistent. A gentle audit and a brighter morning tonight. I want you to try something different. Open your fridge. Look inside, not with guilt, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, what here is comforting me? What here is quietly harming me? And then choose one thing to change tomorrow. Not everything, just one. A different oil, a real fruit, a simpler breakfast. Because when Curtis made that one switch, ditching his margarine for avocado, his whole body started to shift. Not from fear, not from pressure, but from awareness. And that awareness became power. You're not broken, you're being burdened. Most people think joint pain is punishment. But what if it's a signal? A loving nudge from the body that says, something here is too heavy. Can we let it go? When we lighten that burden through better food, cleaner air, gentler routines, our joints don't just survive. They respond. They forgive. They bend again. They breathe again. And we remember that feeling we thought we'd lost. Lightness, not just in the knees, but in the soul. You're not rebuilding the past. You're creating a new future. Some mornings feel like a test. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, reach for your slippers, and wince. The knees resist. The hips hesitate. Your back whispers something sharp. And before the day even begins, the thought comes, it's going to be another slow one. I've heard this from so many patients, not just the pain, but the fear behind it. The fear that this is as good as it gets now, that the slope of decline has already begun and there's nothing left but to brace for the ride. But I want to tell you something gently and clearly. You are not a sinking ship. You are not behind schedule. You are at a threshold, and on the other side of it is something entirely different, not a return to who you were, but a deepening into who you can still become. The gift hidden inside repair. Let me tell you about Mary and Dennis Campbell from St. Paul, Minnesota. Married 51 years. Mary had rheumatoid arthritis. Dennis had a replaced hip and an attitude of steel. When I met them, they were tired, not just physically, but emotionally. Tired of doctors, tired of pain, tired of fighting what felt like an invisible current dragging them backward. But here's what changed. Instead of trying to go back to normal, we asked a different question. What could life look like if we built it around ease, not effort? We mapped out a new rhythm: food that healed, movement that soothed, rest that restored, and, most importantly, relationships that uplifted. Dennis joined a men's walking group at the local YMCA. Mary started water therapy at a community pool. Together, they began volunteering at a local animal shelter. 2 years later, they're still not pain-free, but they're pain-liberated, because now the pain is not the center of their life. They are. The myth of back to how it was. Too many health journeys get stuck here, chasing some image of youth, that 40-year-old version of you who jogged on weekends and climbed stairs without thinking. But that image can become a trap, because real healing isn't about looking backward. It's about building forward. It's not about jogging again. It's about walking into the next chapter without fear. It's not about dancing at weddings like you used to. It's about standing tall during the slow song with someone you love. It's not about becoming who you were. It's about becoming someone wiser, stronger, more intentional, with joy in the joints you still have. You don't need a perfect body. You need a willing one. I met Frank Olson in Boise, Idaho, a retired truck driver. Big frame, big laugh, bigger pain. When I first suggested he try stretching, he snorted. "Doc, I bend down once a day if I drop something important." But we started small, one stretch, every morning while the coffee brewed. 3 months later, he told me he was doing Tai Chi at the local park. "It's slow," he said, "but it feels good, like my body finally got invited back to the conversation." That's it, right there. You don't need to be pain-free to move. You just need to stop believing the lie that movement belongs to the young. Your body doesn't want perfection. It wants participation. Your life is still expandable. It's easy to shrink with pain, to decline invitations, to shorten your walks, to settle for less. But what if your life could still expand? What if every new food you choose, every joint you tend to, every slow walk you commit to, wasn't about recovery, but about discovery? What if these next 10 years aren't just something to endure, but something to build? I've seen it over and over. A woman in Kansas City with osteoarthritis who learned to garden again. A man in Flagstaff who joined a book club after 2 knee surgeries. A couple in Raleigh who took up canoeing at 78. Not because they were cured, but because they were willing. They chose expansion over contraction, not grand gestures, just one tiny act of courage at a time. A small question for a bigger life. Tonight, as you rest, I want to leave you with this. What would your body do tomorrow if it didn't have to fear today? Would it walk to the corner, stretch in the kitchen, reach out to a friend, pick up a forgotten hobby, make that first healthy meal again? Your joints don't just want less pain, they want a reason to move. And your life? It's still unfolding, not despite your pain, but because of what you're choosing to do with it. The return to the beginning. You were never fragile. You were becoming. I began this journey with a man named Mr. Borisenko. His hands trembled from the pain in his wrists, and his voice carried the quiet resignation of someone who believed that the good years were behind him. Today, I want to return to him, because his story, like so many others, did not end in pain. It ended in motion. Last winter, I received a letter. Inside was a photo. Mr. Borisenko in a wool coat, standing beside his granddaughter at an outdoor ice rink in Chicago. He wasn't skating, but he was smiling, holding her hand, steady as ever. "Dr. Warren," he wrote, "I didn't go back to who I was. I found someone better." That one sentence, I believe, holds everything we've talked about, because the goal of healing is not to reverse time. It's to reclaim presence. You are still here. That matters more than you know. If you've followed this journey, from turmeric and tart cherries to avocado and kiwi, from stiffness to movement, from grief to expansion, then you already understand something many never will. Pain is not just a warning, it's an invitation. It's your body saying, "Don't disappear, don't give up on me." And now you've answered, with food, with motion, with care, with hope. You've stepped into a story not of decline, but of return, not to youth, but to truth. The truth that your body, even now, even in pain, is not broken. It is brilliant. It is becoming. This is the new you, not less, just different. I think of Helen Morris from San Diego. At 82, she told me, "I used to grieve the woman I was. Now I'm falling in love with the woman I'm becoming." She wasn't pain-free, but she was present. She stretched each morning, made her cherry tea at night, and kept a bowl of kiwis by the window, just to remind herself that nature was still working, quietly, just like she was. That's what this is, my friends. Not a diet, not a miracle, a quiet, steady, personal revolution. One bite, one stretch. One act of kindness toward the very body that's carried you through every sorrow and every joy. If you remember nothing else, remember this: turmeric soothes, cherries cool, avocado lubricates, kiwi rebuilds, movement restores, connection heals. But above all else, attention transforms. When you begin to attend to yourself, not just treat pain, but witness it, you reclaim something bigger than mobility. You reclaim meaning, and maybe, just maybe, you'll look down one day at your own hand, like Mr. Borisenko did, and realize this hand still moves, this heart still hopes. And this life? It's not done yet, from my heart to yours. If you're still here, reading these words, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. You are not too late. You are not a burden. You are a story still being told, a sunrise still unfolding, a body still capable of healing, and a soul still worth every bite of joy that life has to offer. So, eat well, walk gently, speak kindly, rest deeply, and live fully, not because of what you've lost, but because of what you still have, and because of who you're still becoming. With all my respect, Dr.